His book is out in stores nationwide right now. It's The Tyranny of Good Intentions. And we're talking to Dr. Paul Craig Roberts today. Continuing with the discussion of the economy, as the former head of the Treasury, head of policy, where is the economy really right now versus the mainstream corporate press saying that we're not really in a recession yet and using all of this cooking of books? And then the added question, why were they more honest in the past about unemployment and recession and things? They still cooked it some. And then why do they just lie so much about that now? It would seem to me, reading Joseph Goebbels on propaganda, he said that sometimes too big a lie is too long. Once people know it's a lie, it discredits you, so it's better to tell some truth.
Well, what they did with the employment and inflation statistics is that over time, each administration monkeyed with it a little bit to make themselves look better, and any particular change didn't have much effect. But over, 30 years, they become cumulative and big effects. And the biggest things happened in the Clinton administration. Now, he did two things. One, he ceased, I can't say he, but the government during Clinton's administration ceased to count discouraged workers as unemployed. If you're not actively seeking for a job, you're not considered in the labor force, and therefore, if you're discouraged and said, well, I've been trying to get a job for 5 years and can't get one, and I'm just staying home, I'm giving up, they don't count you anymore. And what they did to inflation, they changed the way they measure it such that comparisons pre-Clinton and post-Clinton aren't possible, because what Clinton did, in order to cheat the Social Security recipients whose retirement checks were indexed to inflation, they wanted to hold down those payments, so they rigged the CPI to understate inflation. And one of the ways they did that was, for example, if the price of steak goes up in the index of all the weighted commodities in the basket of goods that they're measuring, price of steak goes up, it doesn't reflect anymore as inflationary. They simply assume people don't buy steak, they buy hamburger. So anytime the price of something goes up, they assume people switch to something, to a cheaper substitute. So the basket of goods is not constant, so you don't even know what you're measuring anymore.
And you were saying unemployment's really at about 15% right now?
John Williams, a statistician who measures the unemployment rate the way it was traditionally measured by government prior to these changes, has it at about 15%, and the inflation rate is around 14%. So already these are terrible. This is a terrible situation. And of course, since the inflation rate is so understated, in the one that the government uses now, it makes it look like you've got real gross domestic product growth. But John Williams points out that when you measure inflation the way, say, it was measured in the Reagan years, you don't have any. We've been in a recession since 2006 because by understating the inflation, any kind of GDP growth looks real. But if you put the real measure inflation in there, there's no increase in real growth since 2006. So we've been in a recession for 2 years already.
Yeah, let's jump to another topic, and then we'll go back into the economy and where you see it going in the final segment coming up. What is this big, I'm asking all the experts we have on, what is this big international crisis that the head of the Navy and the head of the Army and Joe Biden and Colin Powell all say is coming on the 21st and 22nd, but they can't and won't tell us what it is, but they know. A lot of our experts are saying they're going to launch some type of embargo against Iran, or Israel's going to threaten to go ahead and attack, or may go ahead and attack? Some are saying, first we said it was off the table, but now it's back on the table. Or is it the new Bretton Woods, dollar devaluation, or new global currency? What are you hearing, sir?
Well, I don't know what exactly you're talking about, but supposedly on the 15th of November, there's supposed to be an international economic summit because our European allies have demanded a change in the international financial.
All right, stay there, Dr. Roberts. Let's come back and talk about that on the other side of this quick break with Dr. Paul Craig Roberts. Stay with us, Infowars.com.
We took a little trip along with Colonel Jackson down the mighty Mississippi. We took a little bacon and we took a little beans, and we caught the bloody British in a town in New Orleans. We fired our guns.
All right, final segment with Dr. Paul Craig Roberts. Appreciate him joining us today. Take some final phone calls at the end of the show, cover some other news we haven't gotten to. I'm going to cover the economy a little bit after he leaves us. Here's Bill Gertz today, Washington Times. Mullen, military is ready to respond to transition terror attack. They believe Al-Qaeda or other countries. So you can read all his quotes here. It's up on Infowars.com. We have a link saying we're going to probably have another September 11th attack. They're going to test our president. Biden says there's going to be something happen right when he gets inaugurated, and that it's going to test him, and that it's not going to be popular with Democrats. You heard about Colin Powell on Meet the Press, 2 weeks ago, I'm sure, saying that, if it was when he endorsed him, he said he will be tested when he's inaugurated, the 21st or 22nd, with an international crisis that's manufactured. You're a news hound. You haven't heard about those?
Well, I keep hearing these claims that he's going to be tested by terrorists, but I don't believe that at all. And if there is any new 9/11, I would be highly suspicious that terrorists had any responsibility for it. So
you would think you would look at it being staged like 9/11?
I think any of these events will be staged, yeah.
All right.
And I don't see the point of staging one unless they're going to use it not to let him be inaugurated. But since his government won't really be much different from the one that's in office now, I don't know why they would care whether he's inaugurated or not. I mean, it's the same. It's going to be the same crowd, the same group, the same interest groups doing the same thing.
All right, shifting gears back to the new Bretton Woods agreement. They're openly saying small group of international banks setting world policy. Stiglitz is saying it. They're all saying it. Basically, world government of and by, that's their words, the banks setting global carbon credit taxes paid to them. Do you think they're going to be able to get that coming up at this series of meetings?
No, because the United States and Europe no longer are undisputed leaders. The United States is busted and totally dependent on foreigners, primarily Asians and Arabs, to finance their consumption and the daily operation of their government, their wars, the defense budget. The Chinese and the Russians are not going to let themselves be put under the thumb of some kind of banking group. It's not going to happen. I think that what this November 15th meeting is about is the rest of the world serving notice on the United States that it's no longer going to be the one that caused the financial tunes, because the dollar needs international support, and Wall Street has shown that it's irresponsible and incompetent, and so its credibility is gone. So I think you're going to see people that what they're going to say is, look, we need to move to a reserve currency that's a basket of currencies in which the dollar plays a role but is no longer the dominant factor. So I think that's what's going to what's going to start. And so I don't know. I don't think the banks are going to take over. The Chinese are not going to let some stupid European bank conspiracy take over China, and certainly the Russians aren't. They almost had that, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, and they were struggling. They almost got taken over, but Putin ran them all out of the country, and I don't think he's going to let them back. So, and there's going to be so many problems here, from unemployment, from tent cities, from whatever the ridiculous policies that the Congress passes.